This is Rick Rule for Rule Investment Media and the Rule Classroom, co-sponsors of the 2025 Natural Resources Investment Symposium in Boca Raton, Florida, July 7 through 11, or via live stream from the comfort and convenience of your own home. Today's discussion isn't really a conference interview. Today's guest is, of course, an executive sponsor at the conference and an old friend of mine. And the interview today is really in response to my own getting 50 to 100 emails a day concerning the affairs of Battle Bank. 17,000 people are on the wait list to begin doing business with Battle Bank, and many on that list and many of the people who listen to this continuing series of discussions at the Rule Classroom coincide. In other words, the list has a lot of mutual members. So, Frank, I'd like to have a discussion with you today about the current status of Battle Bank, where we are, what the plans are for the future, and when the 17,000 people who have lined up to do business with us are able to do business with us. Welcome, first of all.
Well, thanks so much, Rick, for having me on. I mean, this is obviously my favorite topic. We're here to build Battle Bank, a community bank across the country of kind of like-minded individuals who are interested in many of the things that you talk about here at Rule Investment Media. So love to be here, and I appreciate the opportunity.
I don't think either of us at the beginning of this adventure understood that Battle Bank would refer to battle to open a bank or battle for regulatory approval, but here we are. So tell us something about the very recent progress towards being able to get open. It's now a matter of public record that we are acquiring an operating bank. So tell us about that. Tell us about the process. Tell us about where we go from here.
I'd love to do that. But in November, we agreed to purchase a bank in Minnesota, Stearns Bank of Uppsala. And you might want to take a little tour on Google Maps to see what that looks like. It's a wonderful little community, great operating institution. And we've agreed with Stearns, the holding company for Stearns Bank of Uppsala, to purchase a bank. And once we have made that agreement, of course, we go back to our regulators. It's not unlike building a apartment building or an office building or starting a new pharmaceutical product or something like that. You go to your regulators and ask them for permission. And in this transaction, we're talking to the OCC, the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, which will be our primary regulator of the bank. It will be a national bank, of course. And the Federal Reserve, the Fed, is responsible for determining that Battle Financial can become a holding company upon acquisition of the bank. So through that process, we made application in February to each of those regulators. The Fed to ask permission to become a holding company, and the OCC for permission to operate the Battle Bank business plan. We've certainly talked about that over the years, and we'll talk about it more here today. Through that process, we've actually had a great engagement, particularly with the OCC. The OCC, we have had a number of phone conversations with, some written questions, which we have responded to. And reading the tea leaves, there's no guarantees for anything, but we're feeling that that's getting pretty darn close to an answer from the OCC, and we think that answer is good. Literally, what will happen is they will issue a conditional approval. Conditional approval means if you follow the following rules, you can acquire the bank and begin to operate your business plan. The Fed's also in that same process. They have a slightly different viewpoint. They're more interested in the structure of the holding company, who owns shares, what the capital structure looks like, how much of it is there, and so on. And they get very technical. And we're back and forth with them a little bit on some of those technical issues. And it's, deep inside the shareholder agreement. It's deep inside the stock purchase agreement for our principal shareholders. And they're going through that, and they're making great progress there. We understand that the Washington Group, which is the board of the Federal Reserve, is looking at a couple of those questions, and hopefully we'll have final questions or an approval there as well. So that's really the process to open the bank. Once we get that Fed approval, in about 45 days or less, we'll actually make the acquisition of Stearns Bank of Uppsala and begin to operate that institution. And once we get some testing done with my money, possibly a little bit of yours, Rick, make sure the checks go the right direction, the wires come in, and all those great things. Then we'll begin to open the bank on the Battle Bank business plan. So that's the process. We would expect to have the opportunity to start talking to Battle Bank clients off that 17,000 person wait list, probably 80 to 90 days after that Fed approval. So we're really looking forward to this. We had an all hands team meeting today. The team is really energized and ready to get out the door after this long wait.
So, Frank, today's call should be of interest really to three constituencies. Customers of the bank, either borrowers or IRA custodians, depositors to the bank, and potentially investors to the bank. So we need to remember in each facet of this discussion to deal with all of the appropriate constituencies. One thing that I think will be useful for all constituencies to know is that the little bank that we're buying is a very clean bank. Often when you buy a bank, there's an awful lot of due diligence that goes around the asset side of the ledger, which is to say, can they get back the money that they've lent? It's worth noting that in the case of the acquisition of Stearns Bank, functionally all of the assets of the bank were purchased by the seller, leaving us with a very clean institution, mostly cash. Could you describe that part of the transaction and why that's a benefit to each of our constituencies?
Well, I think you're absolutely right. We have looked at a number of institutions to purchase over the years. Typically, they're not very large institutions, 50 to 100 million, and often they're pretty well loaned up. And a lot of those loans, and some of the cases are made to local people, of course. And many of these loans are contingent upon being able to call grandfather and get grandson or granddaughter to pay the loan back, really being locally in the community. And that's wonderful. That's great community banking. In this case, Stearns has agreed, they have placed a number of leases and other loans at Stearns Bank of Uppsala. They've agreed to take those back up into their other institutions. And what they'll do is they'll leave us with an amazingly clean balance sheet. We expect to have about 50 million in total assets when the transaction closes. We expect to have a very small amount of loans, a little under 500,000, and the balance of the institution will be in cash. Cash which we can put to work making loans, cash which we can put to work making very conservative fixed income investments, and just continue to operate the institution in Uppsala. It's a wonderful community. We'll continue to make loans and take deposits there. But what it does is it leaves us with an opportunity to deploy those funds into some of the things in our Battle Bank business plan that we know and love and expect to have many of our clients be very attentive to. So we're very excited about the way this transaction is coming to fruition.
I think that everybody who's listening to this call needs to understand that although we have been 4 years in organization, we haven't wasted 4 years. And I'd like you to talk to two aspects of that. The first has been the building out of the technology that will allow us to operate a national community bank effectively branchless. Many people listening to this call will remember the success that you had doing that at Everbank, your predecessor institution. But I'd like you to describe some of the technology features and describe how we'll be able to be a non-traditional bank. And the second thing that we've done, understanding that when you started Everbank, you started with a customer backlog of exactly 0. Mm-hmm. And over 4 years, we've built a potential customer backlog of 17,000. I'd like you to discuss that too as an asset.
Well, sounds great. Well, I'll start with the 17,000 folks on the wait list. And, first of all, thank you for particularly the early folks who've been incredibly patient. And we hear from them constantly. Rick mentioned he gets 50 to 100 emails a day. I get quite a few emails every day as well. And we're delighted that people are excited about this. The wait list will be our primary source of clients. We will not just open the doors to anybody and everything right away. So if you want to have an opportunity to be an early depositor or borrower or transactor or retirement account owner at Battle Bank, you should be on the wait list. We will begin, as I mentioned, about 90 days, plus or minus a little bit there, to start to work through the wait list. And not everybody, all 17,000, will receive an email that first day. We need to work through this. We want to make sure things are as close to perfect as possible. And so we'll begin slowly to work through that list. And I think that's going to be very exciting for people, particularly who've been on the list for a number of years. Rick mentioned we had exactly 0 people at the beginning of EverBank, and that's absolutely correct. And our very first marketing effort, which was a direct mail piece, was a beautiful 6-page color brochure, garnered us exactly 0 clients. So we learned a lot the last 25 years since that launch in January of 2000. And so those 17,000 people should be able to really appreciate coming into Battle Bank. Now, turning to the technology side, we have custom built with partners our entire client-facing infrastructure. Let's start with how you become a client of EverBank. An online account opening, or what we call the OAO, has been designed from the ground up to be easy to operate, easy to open an account, be that just a regular high-yield cash account, a retirement account, IRA, a solo 401k, a checkbook IRA, or a global markets account. And what we found when we went out to the market 3 years ago, we asked a lot of the vendors out there, could they open all these different types of accounts? And we get an answer like, well, we can open a checking account for an individual, we can open a checking account for a joint account, but trust, not so much. LLC, not so much. So what we really did is we went back with some partners, Savannah and Finxact, and have built and tested over and over again this process from the ground up. In addition, online banking seems like it's something that should just come flying off the shelf of some provider. But again, we took a look at that and we felt that we wanted to do something better. And the team designed and built with partners the online banking system that you'll be able to operate when you become a client of EverBank or Battle Bank. I always go back to my old roots there, don't I? But as you're a client, you'll be able, of course, to do all your standard transactions that you can with the high yield cash account, whether it's bill pay or set up wires or accept your paycheck or deposit in any form. But of course, we'll also be able to operate your retirement accounts where we really feel it should be your retirement account. That'll be just a regular IRA, or if you want to do a checkbook IRA, where you can make very specific investments in not ineligible items, you're welcome to do that. The global market system has also been designed so we can actually trade, purchase or sell your currencies online in real time, as well as precious metals. So if you want to buy 50 Eagles, you want to buy 100-ounce bar of gold or silver, just go into your online banking account, click, click, click. It'll show you the price. If you accept it, go ahead and hit it. It's all going to be automated in that sense. So what we've really tried to do is build something that is as frictionless as possible. And at the same time, we back that up with humans. It's interesting. We were on the all hands team call this morning, and one of our vendors, they could literally not get to a human being. Just texts and chats, automated chats, of course, all the way up the chain. But we really feel that client service should involve high quality individuals, and we have that team built. so that you can pick up the phone and call if you have an issue, if you have something that's a little out of the ordinary, if you're not sure how to do something, or if you just want to have some more information. And our team is deeply experienced. Typically, it's somebody that's been a branch manager or a frontline person in a traditional institution that's come on and just wants to talk to clients and understand them and build a relationship. And we're happy to do that. So, whether your personal inclination is to come in electronically and never talk to anybody, great. We love that. If you want to talk to us, we're here to do that as well. And that goes for banking, for the retirement system, as well as for global markets. So we've really taken this and built this from the ground up. And our team of about 20 individuals is just highly motivated, highly excited, very dedicated. You have a lot of team members over the years where you have to sort of get on them, say, have you done your job today? Our team is the type where they come in and they say, I finished everything we were looking to do. What else can I do? And there's nothing better in terms of building an organization.
In terms of assessing a startup organization like this, it's important for people listening to this call, irrespective of whether they intend to be investors or customers or both, to know that you've done this before. You've built out technology, you've built out a customer service team. Tell us something about the process of building out EverBank, growing from zero to, if I recall, $28 billion. Talk to us about the fact that you've done this same task, albeit differently, before.
Well, way back in the late 1990s, we looked out at the banking environment, and there were long lines out past the teller windows. People weren't paying any interest. They were charging high fees and really providing poor service. And a number of us got together to form EverBank. And our concept was not dissimilar to what we're going to be doing here at BattleBank. Which is to reach out nationally, reach out directly, prefer not to have the branch network, which is really a cost burden to the client. You think about it as a cost burden to the company, but it's really a cost burden to the client because that precludes the big box banks from paying a fair rate of interest, and it adds in fees, and it really forces them down the pathway to have high fee type of product offerings to pay for that network. So when we started EverBank, it was about 8 years before the iPhone, to sort of put that in your head, literally the same weekend that AOL and Time Warner merged. Very kind of early days for the average person to be involved in the internet and direct banking. And all of our applications at that time were paper. You'd fill out, download the application, or we'd mail it to you. You'd fill it out by hand, send it back, and somebody would type it all in. Of course, those days are gone. I don't know that we'll even literally have a paper application going forward, but I'm sure we will for a few people if they need it. So the process there was we began with zero, as we discussed before, and learned how to market it directly to consumers nationwide. It began certainly with some direct mail, but also learning those early years of the internet. And as we developed, we grew fairly rapidly, pretty much exactly on plan as we had presented to our regulatory friends way back then. Starting at zero, had about 350 million in 2 years, worked at about 10 billion in 8 to 10 years, and of course 28 billion by the time we sold to TIAA in 2017. Now, those are large numbers, and it takes a little while to get your head around them, but I think that represents the enthusiasm that the market had for the company. Going from zero all the way up to that large number. We expect to do, who knows, we may be able to achieve that sort of growth again.
I think it's important for people listening to this call, irrespective of their investors or customers or both, to understand that you've done this before, successfully and at scale. In fact, many people listening to this discussion, myself included, will have been former EverBank customers. I want to shift gears a little bit, though. When we talk about 17,000 people on a wait list, what we're really talking about in the context of a competitive landscape is competitive advantage. Our customer acquisition cost with regards to our first year's growth is likely zero. That's the lowest customer acquisition cost of any bank I ever heard of. And I think the value proposition, both to investors and to customers, is that given that our customer acquisition cost is zero, and given that we don't have any cost associated with a branch distribution network, that we're able to pay higher interest rates. I want you to talk about the value proposition for depositors and how shareholders still benefit from being in the top interest paying quartile in the country.
Well, yeah, as Rick said, our high yield cash account, if you go to a typical bank, I do bank surveys from time to time, particularly right in front of conferences. I hope everybody here is coming to the conference in Boca Raton this July. And when I do that, I have to sort through sometimes 8 or 10 or 20 different checking products that the institution's offering, essentially none of which are paying interest and often charging relatively high fees. At Battle Bank, we will have one central account, the high yield cash account. If you want to use that for a savings account, we think that would be wonderful. If you want to use that for a full service checking account, paying bills, doing direct deposit, doing really anything you need to do with the bank, that's fantastic too. And today, sort of think about the rates in the 360, 370 range would probably be about where we're paying today for a full service checking account. Now, national average is exactly 0.01%. And what we're able to do that is partly because we don't have that branch infrastructure. We don't have to send independent auditors to look at the vault at 500 different locations. We don't have to have a team in each of those branches with a building with extraordinary rents. And at the same time, we've also have this backlog of clients, hopeful prospective clients, the wait list, that are ready to come in and be a part of the mission here at Battle Bank. And I think all of those sort of come together, and you look at the high yield cash account, you'll look at some of our lending products, you look at some of the retirement accounts where we will be a price leader in the market for fully self-directed retirement accounts. And I think you'll see the value. And on the other side of the ledger, that allows us to have relatively frictionless client acquisition, paying extremely fair value to clients, which allows them to be sticky. I don't have to go out and regenerate them because they're ticked off at the 0% interest. And that way we can deploy the deposits into excellent earning assets, precious metals lending, software lending, appropriate short-term securities. And we're very conservative in that sense. And over time, of course, we'll develop other lending products that we can use to deploy that well-earned deposits that come in at a fair rate of interest.
Let's talk about the other part of our deposit suite. We've been through a very long period of effective U.S. dollar hegemony. I suspect for many reasons that while the U.S. dollar will continue as the world's reserve currency, there are a lot of reasons why investors might consider maintaining liquidity, short-term liquidity, in a variety of currencies. Could you talk about the idea that you will be able to offer federal deposit insurance guaranteed certificates of deposit in many currencies and why that might be advantageous to savers?
It actually could be the perfect timing. We will be offering money market deposit accounts and CDs in about 18 different currencies worldwide. Now, why do people do this? A couple different reasons. One, you're diversifying your cash allocation in your portfolio. And two, you're hopefully taking advantage of, if unfortunately, a decline in the U.S. dollar. Now, I think Warren Buffett, if you looked at the Berkshire Hathaway meeting transcript the other day, said, "Why would I invest in a currency that's going to hell?" I'm paraphrasing him a little bit there, but it's pretty darn close. A number of other commentators feel that the U.S. dollar is time to possibly take a pretty significant decline over the next several years. So it gives you an opportunity to benefit if that is the case and helps to hedge your own cost of living like many other hedges against inflation and decline of the dollar. And of course, we've had over the years, both at Everbank, previous bank, Mark Twain banks, people coming in and diversifying their portfolio, whether it's into Swiss francs, the euro, Australian dollars, Chinese renminbi, 18 different currencies. You can take advantage of a highly commoditized market like in Australia. You can take advantage of just a different offset, the European Union or the UK or Norway. Norway is really just an oil company that just happens to be called a country. They do pretty well. So it's really your choice. And I think by building a diversified portfolio of these deposits, we think the time may be right to really start to allocate a higher portion of a portfolio into foreign currencies. And this gives everybody easy availability. Now, if you walk into a bank in Zurich or London or Sydney, you could do this, but you really can't walk it into your Main Street bank in the US. So this is a unique product for us, and we expect to have a lot of interest.
I actually had this product offered to me by my big box bank. The problem was there was a $10 million minimum, which seemed a bit exclusive. One of the things about the foreign currency CD product that excites me, separate and apart from the fact that I live in several currencies, so I would prefer to bank in several currencies, is that gives the bank access to a very sophisticated depositor and customer bank. I noticed that at Everbank, a combination of depositor-friendly products and great service meant that your depositors, some of whom became borrowers too, were a cut above. You had large deposit balances. You had a customer base that was sticky because they demanded products that couldn't be bought elsewhere. Could you talk about that and do this from the point of view of folks like me who are shareholders, investors?
Well, I think, at Everbank, it won't disclose the precise number, but the average checking balance was north of $60,000. Now, if you look at general banks, that's typically about $2,500 to $3,000. So we had a very different client. And part of that is the account structure. We paid interest. What a concept. Otherwise, people are trying to keep money in a savings account, which, by the way, only on average pay a little less than 2% versus our 360, 370, while shifting it back and forth with their checking account. This more sophisticated individual is also open to things like the foreign currency deposits, things like owning precious metals, understands what a self-directed IRA really means. It's not the same thing as a self-directed IRA at the financial supermarkets, but it's something where you take control of your own investing. And they also are interested in things like our market index deposits, where you have principal protection and a return based on an index that we select from time to time and offer from time to time. This client base also ultimately borrows, and we find that a lot of people come in as a retail client, and then down the road they happen to be an entrepreneur. So the business may follow, and maybe the business loan may follow. So we have all these different opportunities to have a conversation, whether it's electronically or physically with this space. And they also give us some great ideas. Some of our products at Everbank certainly came from having a conversation at conferences, through email, through phone calls, through video calls, where people come up with ideas. I'm thinking about how to do this. Can you guys help? And we think we're pretty creative about that. We're not going to say yes to everything because that's not the right thing to do from a shareholder basis either. But this very sticky, very steady, low attrition type of a depositor base from an investor standpoint is extremely attractive. I do like that we emphasize that.
That I think it goes back to customer acquisition cost twice. One of the reasons why Everbank, I think, became such a successful mortgage originator is there were a whole bunch of people who'd been treated well on the deposit side. And I like the fact that, at least with regards to the first 17,000, our customer acquisition cost is zero. And I like the ability that the people who are sophisticated enough to be depositors in these deposit products are likely to be customers for other products that the bank sells. And again, our customer acquisition cost associated with that is zero. I think investors who are interested in a competitive institution will like that.
Well, I
Let's
think
move
that's
on.
absolutely right. Yes.
Let's move on to the IRA products. When you were first telling me in the organization of this bank about the checkbook IRA, you may recall that I said I'm not going to jail over any cockamamie scheme like this. Turned out you had your legal people talk to my lawyer, who assured me that I wouldn't have to go to jail. It was completely legitimate. It seemed too good to be true. So talk to me about the checkbook IRA and how your IRA becomes your IRA. I mean, this is just, for me, a self-actualized investor, this is just a dream come true.
Well, it is. If you think about what the market has done, the financial supermarkets, let's just use Schwab, Fidelity, and Vanguard as the easy examples, want you to buy their financial supermarket products. They want you in mutual funds. They want you to trade stocks. They want you to do simple things that they don't have to deal with. But if you ring them up and say, I'd like to do a private equity investment, they're probably going to say no. There may be some way to slip through on that. If you ring them up and say, I'd like to buy a 4-family flat that's income producing, they'll say no. And there are a few alternatives out there that are trust companies that have a pretty hefty fee that'll allow you to do that. But what an IRA is, and you look at the statute yourself, you look at some of the IRS letters that have come out over the year in terms of approval or disapproval. And the IRS uses a term not ineligible. So let's just call that eligible from this point forward. There are many things that you can legally do in an IRA that really aren't available at the financial supermarket. So a checkbook IRA is pretty straightforward. You open an IRA at Battle Bank, and we are the custodian, not a trustee, a custodian of that IRA. Underneath that IRA, you form an entity, typically a limited liability corporation or an LLC, through which the IRA is 100% owner of, through which you can make investments in anything that is not ineligible. Oftentimes, that's income-producing properties. Maybe it's a 4-family flat, an apartment block, a vacation rental. And there are some very strict rules around that. You personally cannot set foot in that except to do maintenance. You can't stay in your apartment. You can't stay in your vacation home. Your family can't stay in that vacation home. But if you follow the rules, and there are a lot more than that, it's a perfectly eligible or not ineligible investment. You can do hard money loans. You can make investments in private equity. You can probably open a crypto account, and there'll be more things that open up down the road. So what this really means is your retirement account is your retirement account. And you don't necessarily have to buy the latest and greatest from Schwab or Fidelity or Vanguard to try to make your return. Nothing wrong with those. Having a diversified portfolio is a wonderful thing, but you may have a different viewpoint. And of course, you can always buy certain elements of precious metals. The rules are a little tighter there, and you want to be very careful about that. And we'll provide you with some literature that you can read to make sure you are. But there's a wide array of investments that we feel are good diversified investments, and our clients feel are good diversified investments that you can do now that you just can't do anywhere else.
Frank, that's a great segue to precious metals. Battle Bank will have at least two principal precious metals products. One, we will act to buy, sell, and store precious metals for clients. Two, assuming that we have a dealer arrangement, we're happy to lend against precious metals, either held with other dealers at our selected vaults or with our own. Could you describe both of these products? I think this audience, the Rural Classroom audience in particular, is interested in precious metals. But if you look at the source of the people who have populated our wait list, I think that you'll find a predominance of interest from people who are interested in precious metals. So let's address those products.
We actually do a lot of conversations with our wait list, and if you join it, you'll see that. We've surveyed the list a number of times, and I can assure you that people are interested in precious metals based on their response. So just start out with the basic dealing. You can buy, you can sell, you can store with us, or we'll deliver to you precious metals, gold, silver, platinum, or palladium, and those are all bank-eligible precious metals. We will store that on your behalf. And there's two different versions. One is an allocated storage where you buy specific coins, bars, wafers, whatever your choice is, and we'll start those. There will be a fee on that. That actual fee is being determined, but it'll be well inside the market. We'll also give you an opportunity to have an unallocated account if you're just diversifying into that precious metal. And that means we have more than the precious metals owed to clients in custody on behalf of clients at all times. And you're buying ounces and fractions of an ounce, just basically, whether it's on a monthly basis or in a big purchase, and those are stored for you at Battle Bank on your behalf. There's no fee for that storage item. Easy to deal with this. We've been dealing in precious metals since the middle 1980s. So we're very familiar with the market, and we're excited that our clients are as well. Now, a lot of us feel that we don't want to sell our precious metals. We will have that We really have that allocation as a means of sort of a bedrock foundation for our wealth. And at the same time, we may have liquidity needs. I don't know if you need to put a deck on the back of your house, you make another investment, or maybe even buy more precious metals. And we looked out at the market and found that there are really, if you walk into a local bank with a handful of bars or a big bag of coins, they'll probably, figure out some way to lend it to you and stick it in their safe deposit box. But both direct to Battle Bank clients and through select dealers with whom we have a contract, we will be able to lend you money against your precious metals holding. That means you get to hold the precious metals, typically gold or silver, for their market appreciation, but use that cash along the way. There'll be 5-year term lines of credit. You can draw down, you can pay back, and all the usual things you can do with a line of credit. Think about, you've certainly heard of a home equity line of credit or a HELOC. We may actually end up calling this a MELOC, a metals equity line of credit. So it's really taking advantage of the value of your precious metals, and yet at the same time getting some liquidity. And we're excited about this product. We think we're going to be relatively unique in the marketplace. And our client response has been significant. So from the waitlist surveys, we think we're going to have a lot of people wanting to do this. And this is substantially automated. You can actually apply online. There's some documentation you have to sign. So it's typically, we're shooting for a 24-hour maximum turnaround. And if it's on us, we may, shortly after opening, maybe not day one, be able to make that money available on day one.
Frank, briefly, I want to talk about the transaction and the opportunity. I think it's worth noting that we have subscriptions in hand to open the bank and get established. I also note that well-capitalized banks have between 8 and 10% of total assets represented by equity. What that means, frankly, with a 17,000-person wait list, is that the more equity that we have, the faster we can grow. My own prejudice, of course, you're the CEO of the bank, I'm just a shareholder. My own prejudice is that this bank be owned by its customers, be owned by its depositors, be owned by its borrowers, be owned by its employees. But could you talk briefly, understanding that we'll talk at another time to everybody, more specifically about the investment opportunity? Could you talk a bit about the offering?
Sure, I'd be delighted to. We have a convertible note in the market today, and accredited investors only can go to battlebank.com, and there is an invest page where you can certify yourself initially as an accredited investor. We will be fact-checking that. And then you can read all the documentation. They really encourage anybody who's interested in this to read all of that. The convertible note bears interest at 7%, and it will convert on the next equity event. There's details, of course, in the offering memorandum, but we would expect that to be about 30 days after receiving the approval from the Federal Reserve. Those notes will then convert to common shares. You have price protection in the note, maximum price. And if there's a down round, you also are protected there. You receive that price. And I'll emphasize that that's the same price as our lead investors. There's no promotes here. There's no special shares. There's no free shares. Everybody's in at the same price in this round. If you're a more institutional investor, we can talk directly about contributing a term sheet that may have a price attached to it. But the convertible notes are really for anybody and everybody who wants to participate in Battle Financial building Battle Bank.
Frank, in a subsequent interview, which, by the way, will be a public question and answer session, we will host this June 6th at 12:30 Pacific time. Note that this will be a live, hopefully technology-enabled question and answer session. And at that session, Frank, I want to go through the economics of banking. I want our depositors to understand how we stay solvent. I want our borrowers to understand how we outperform other lenders. And I want our shareholders to understand how much money we're likely to make and how we're going to make it. So be prepared, Frank, and be prepared, ladies and gentlemen, for Economics of Banking 101. One more time, June 6th, 12:30 p.m. Pacific, for the Economics of Banking.
Looking forward to this, and as I said at the very onset here, this is my favorite topic, and that's why I get to be a wonky banker.